Hello lovely people, I'm K3N and welcome to Wonky Wednesday. This week I'm going to make another relation to the log cabin, which is inspired by the Greek key symbol, you know, the two interlocking dark and light. I'm doing a mime of it. So we start with the foundation square. You can of course, as always, piece them without the foundation square. And I do want to find the middle, so I'm going to do the creasing thing on the two diagonals to get myself lines. Oh, sorry, I should have told you what you needed first in case you wanted to stitch along. I've got a foundation square of about 4.5 inches. Yeah, 4.5 inches because my pages are 5 inches, so that'll just sit nicely in my journal. And then I've got some light coloured strips which are about 3/4 of an inch wide, but it doesn't, really matter. They're in scale with what size square you're doing. And some dark coloured strips the same. I'm not going to do a red centre for this, I'm just sticking with the darks and lights. And then I've got some piecing cotton and I've got some dark and light embroidery cotton in case I want to do some fancy stitching. Now you could piece it with a seam, but I'm going to do a raw edge just because I don't feel like I've done that for a while. I'm going to start with a dark strip, a dark square, which I'm going to line up with my guidelines that I just creased. This is something else that might pay experimentation with using paper and cloth, so you could do your darks in paper and your lights in cloth, or vice versa. But I'm going to go for all cloth for a start. Still haven't got a glue stick. So I'm going to cut a square of this. Now the placement is obviously important for the pattern, and it's a little bit, not tricky, but you just have to keep your wits about you. So I'm going to stitch, actually I'm going to stitch that dark square down first. I might just go all the way around the edge of it, close to the edge. When we've done this before with the strips, we go within 1/8 of an inch from the edge so that we cover when we lay the next strip on. So I'm just going to do some running stitches around the edge. I hope no jets go over. There's been a lot of military jets going over today, and they're quite loud, even when I've got my window closed. So yes, the Greek key, you see it a lot in architecture and in floor tiles and, that kind of thing. There's also the word meander. I think it's meandros in Greek, the meander. I think the meander was an actual river, which we now use the word to describe things that do that up and down, windy-windy thing. Meandering. You know what meandering is. It's what my thoughts do often. Right, so I've got my one dark strip, so now I'm going to put the light strip just next to it with the overlap, and turn it to face me, and stitch myself out. So far it should look very familiar. It is, very much a log cabin design. It's just the order in which you put the strips on. Now you put them on opposite sides in pairs, one there, and so on, like when we did courthouse steps. So this side I want a dark strip. So that, because I'm doing raw edge, I'll get the fluffiest, nicest edge to overlap. And you can just cut it either before or when you've stitched, whichever. To the right width, and just do your little overlap, and then I'm going to stitch up that edge and along that edge, because those will both be covered by the next round of strips. Again, just little running stitches. Obviously if you wanted to piece, you would do right sides together so your seam flip open and so on, but the process otherwise would be the same. Now I could, because I'm doing alternate sides, have two needle and threads on the go like I did with the courthouse steps, but I think I'm not going to bother. I think I'm going to just do a little back stitch and cut and jump over. But an art piece, it's going in a journal, it's not going anywhere. So then I need a light strip for the opposite side. So let's have a piece of this. And again, you can either cut it now or when you've stitched, whichever. I'm going to cut it now, don't know why, just feel like it. And you need to kind of judge your gap so that you end up, because then you can put your strips here and here, and you want to end up with those two centre bits, can you see, relatively square. So if I overlap by a little bit like that, then I can make those end up more or less square. As near as makes no difference. So I'll turn that around, and I'm just going to stitch along the outside edge. And it's quite nice how the pattern emerges at one point, because at the moment it doesn't really, well it kind of does, you've got two interlocking L's if you look at it. Okie dokie. So now I can see that I've got a strip there and there, so now I need a strip there and a strip there. And the way to know, I think, which side goes dark and which side is light is, you see here on this, along this edge, you've got three pieces, so you've got two light pieces and a dark piece. So that means you need another dark piece. And here you've got two dark pieces and a light piece, so you need another light piece. I hope that makes sense. So whatever you've got the most of here, which is two lights, you need to add a dark. Is that bit long enough? Not really. Let's get a different bit. Let's have some of this. And in terms of, you know, the width, if you want to play about and get all your strips the same width, of course, as always, you can go for it. I'm not going to bother too much. So now I'm just going to stitch up and along the edge of this dark piece. Oops. I keep catching my other bits of cloth as I go. And this, I mean, we're just going to make one little block, but these, the pattern of these, as with all or most of the log cabin style pieces, they're really fun to make multiple blocks and then put them together so that you get, you know, the repeat patterns across throughout the whole piece with the different blocks, the light and the dark. And do the same thing there. I'm going to end with a little back stitch, because it's going to get stitched across again when I add this, so that'll anchor it further. I would probably be more careful if I was making a piece to be used, like a cushion or something. So I did this side, I need to do this side, and it needs to be light. And there, you see, I'm just looking that my centre squares are squarish. Actually, I think I'm going to use the other end of that because that end's quite dark and I really want to keep the contrast. Did I do a knot? I did not. I did not do a knot. And so I think it's nice that you have the same basic process in all of these blocks that we've done so far. You know, even the hexagons, even last week when we did the weaving, well, that was a slightly different process, okay. In all the weeks apart from the weaving, it's been a very similar process. And the materials are certainly the same. We're dealing with little strips of cloth. And again, with the exception of, not last week, the week before when we did the hexagon colour wheel I'm talking about. you're playing with lights and darks. So it's quite a, I can leave that in. So now I need a dark, now I need a strip here and a strip here, and I've got 2 lights and a dark, so this needs to be dark, and the light the other side, 2 darks and a light means I need another light. That's how you remember if you can't see. As you build, you should see the shape and then it should become more obvious, but sometimes when you're so close to something, you don't see it. But you see now we've got the darks going like this. Do you see? Making the meander. Just trim the end off a bit. Do you see? Do you see? And I must say, as much as I enjoyed the colour of the hexagon, and as much as I enjoyed the very black and white starkness of last week with the red centre, these colours make me very happy. My natural eco print grungy tea dye thing that I love. Each to their own, eh? Just reminds me of the earth and makes me feel good. And when I get to that end, I shall finish off again. And go turn it round to the opposite side, which needs to be light because we did a dark here, plus we've got 2 darks and 1 light, so we need another light. I think if you just keep saying that to yourself as you're working, you can't really go wrong. I'm going to bring this one in slightly more because that strip was a bit wider. So I'm just sort of eyeballing the visible strips and, you know, having them looking vaguely the same width by eye. But it's just whatever you find pleasing. If you find it pleasing to have them all different widths, then go for it. If you want to cut all your strips the same width to begin with and be super accurate with your stitching lines, go with that as well. I was just actually missing the fluffy edges. Well, last week I had some fluffy edges in the weave, didn't I? Because the cloth was raw edge. So when I come to the edge of here, I'm ready to do the opposite side so I don't have to break my thread. So this side, I've got 2 lights and a dark, so I need a dark. That end's darker. It's also quite wide, that bit. I might narrow it down a bit. I have to cut it, it's too little to cut off. Put it in the scraps that tiny bit. Get the fluffy edge, because it's nice. And stitch myself a little bit up the side. That's Stella, if you can hear her doing her little moans in her sleep. And there's also a fly in here. I don't know how it got in. Nothing open anywhere. Well, the windows that are open, we've got you know, that mesh stuff across. And there's quite a lot of flies here. I don't think it's only because of the horses, it's countryside. I suppose it's a good sign if there's a lot of insects of any kind. Right, now I do have to end off because I need to go to the opposite side now. I'm sorry if that buzzing is annoying you, if you can hear it. So now on the opposite side, well, I've just done a dark there, so it's obviously light, but I've got 2 darks and 1 light, so I need another light. That bit, is that big enough? Yeah. Just perfect, that is. I'm not bothering stitching up the side when I'm starting afresh, I'm just going to stitch along the edge. That side will get stitched down with the next piece to go across there. Stella was awake, she would be after that fly. She's quite good at catching them. She doesn't eat them, luckily, she spits them out. But she humanely dispatches them. She is awake. She's awake. That's why she's stopped snoring. She's got down off the sofa. Oh, there you go, you hear her. And no more buzzing. There we go. End of fly. I didn't need to do a back stitch there because I'm back to my opposite side, so I've got 2 lights and 1 dark, so I need a dark. Some of this. Oh, that's a nice bit. I'm going to cut it there. And cut it there. You really see the Greek key design emerging now. And obviously, as always, when you start getting out towards the edge and the strips start getting longer, if you want to put pins in, if you wanna put pins in, you go for it. I sometimes do and I sometimes don't. Good girl, Stell. She's now gone back up on the sofa. It's quite thick cotton, that, but it's very nice print on it, so I'll forgive it. Yes, I'm really liking the look of that, and I'm wondering as well, I'm always in 2 minds with the fluffiness, whether it needs more surface stitching or not. I always like to add surface stitching, just because I like doing surface stitching, but oops, honestly, scissors don't get any better. Mind you, since they became rubbish, you'll all be so glad when I've got new scissors and I stop complaining about my scissors. Okay, since they became rubbish, I'm using them to cut all kinds of things, which isn't helping at all. Okay, I've got 2 darks and 1 light, so I need another light, and I've put that in the wrong pile. This is all pretty much the same, this, but that's all right. Really, really liking that. Might just get 1 line of stitching out of this bit of thread. So yeah, I'm recording in advance now because it's a few days before I go to England. When you see this, I'll be in England. I'll actually be at my first meeting as joint chair of CQ when you're watching this. So, looking forward to that. Although on the other hand, our exhibition will be over, so that will be sad. Hopefully it will have gone well. At the point when you're watching this, we'll know if it's gone well or not. Oops, there we go. So I need new thread, and I've got my next 2 opposites to do. This side I've got 2 lights and a dark, so I need another dark. Some of that, oh, that's super nice. Super duper nice. Now as I get towards the edge I always start thinking about how many more strips. Well, I think if I lay that there I can fit 1 more strip on there. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'll get 1 more round in there and then 2 more rounds in here probably. We'll see. Well, it's always worth, as you start approaching the edge of your foundation, to just start a little bit of forward planning. I just realised I said something wrong. I've completely messed up my time because I'm now, and you know, I'm working for things in the future. No, I won't be in England when you watch this. When you watch this, I'll be going to England tomorrow because this is next week's Wonky Wednesday and we're not there yet. So ignore what I said. That's a bit confusing, for me anyway. I bear a very little brain. So, opposite side I need a light. Tie a knot in that while I'm here. Some of this slightly grey a bit. Because I had a dark here, but also I had two darks and one light, so I need another light. Yeah, so while you're watching this, I'll actually be packing to go to England. I won't be there yet. And it's, apart from the fact that it's always nice to go anyway, to see friends and so on, and have takeaway food and Krabby's ginger beer that I've mentioned before that you can't get here. The things I miss, you know. Silly little things that you miss. I'll be there for 10 days, which is nice, quite a nice long time. Spending time with friends, catching up, exhibition obviously, CQS meeting in a week's time when you're watching this. But then my son will be over in England for a few days, and then he's going to come and stay with me, with my friend who I stay with us for the last couple of nights, and then we'll fly home together, so that will be nice. That will be very nice. I don't need to end that off. So now I've got two lights and a dark, and I need another dark. Some of that. It's not long enough, is it? No, let's put the not long enough bits away because I keep picking them up. Maybe some of this. Really, yeah, I'm really loving it. Did I say that already? So nice when you make something and you really love it. This is that same cotton that's a bit thick. So yeah, I have not run out of log cabins yet. There are a few. Next week I might do the pineapple block, I'm not sure. Because that's one I like very much, and it's a little bit different again. But the thing is, one block is nice. If you don't know it, you kind of make a square on point and then do sort of triangular shape pieces. So the secondary design is a dark cross this way and a light cross this way. But it gets its pineapple name from when you put blocks together, and then the shapes, you know, meet up with each other and make a pineapple-ish shape. If you've got a vivid imagination, it has to be said. So I don't know if making one block, I might have to make 4. So I might have to make 3 in advance and then make one with you, and then put the 4 together. So yeah, so we'll see, because I'll have to obviously do that before I go. So I have to see how the time goes. Right, where am I? I need a light this side now, don't I? And yeah, if I don't do that next week, it will come in a subsequent week, because it is a very nice one. Yeah, that's right. I'm correct. See, sometimes, even though the pattern is now there, I think especially with the fluffy edge, because I'm so close to it, I expect it's easier to see on the screen. It is worth having that thing of 2 darks and a light means a light, and vice versa. Especially if you're sitting doing it watching television or chatting to somebody else, or, you know, well, I'm chatting to you obviously. That's when it's easy to do it wrong. You've come to sit by me, have you? I'm proud of yourself because you dispatched the fly. Poor little fly. You didn't mean to get trapped in here. So I don't need to end that off. And now I've got 2 lights and a dark down this side, so I need a dark. With that, and the other end. It's amazing how many little strips of cloth you can squeeze onto a 4.5 inch square if you put them close enough together. So I'm going to go up to the edge. Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think the pineapple thing, because it's a little while, the last couple of pieces, or the last 3 pieces really have been for the journal, although there's no reason why you couldn't have taken them further for your own projects, your own ideas. But I think it is coming up to the time when it might be nice to make a thing, make something again. So maybe with the pineapple we'll do something. We'll make a thing. But then it is also nice as well to have a little one in the journal, but if I wanted to do 4 blocks in my journal they'd have to be so tiny. So tiny. They would be super fiddly. But anyway, I shall give it some thought and we'll see. Alright, so I have to finish that off because I have to go over to the other side. And there I've got 1, 2 darks and 1 light, so I need a light. That was because I thought I had way loads of strips. Way more than enough, but actually, well, you know, I think I've got enough. But I wouldn't say it was way more than enough. I think that will be the last one there, on that side. So we'll see what happens when we get to the edge. What we end up with, what we end with. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not very chatty. This is the second video I've made today. I've just recorded one of the Mondays. And so I obviously was already talking for 1 hour and 3/4. And although I really enjoy talking, luckily, because I do a lot of it, or maybe that's why I do a lot of it. Apparently, I know what I did want to tell you about, the sock knitting. I keep mentioning it. It is coming together. I think I said somewhere recently that I wanted to be sure that I had the whole thing filmed before I put part 1 is made. So 2 lights and a dark, so I need a dark. I want the silk on the outside edge. I don't know if that's a bit much. And so I didn't want to put it up, part 1 up, until I know that part 2's done, and I don't know how long that's going to take me at the moment, so that's why it hasn't come up yet, but it will. Fear not, it will. I think I'm going to put that there. Cut that to the length. That's a bit wonky, that strip, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, it's Wonky Wednesday. Stitch that on there. Come up the edge. So, yeah. Sock knitting. And I've got a few other ideas coming. Some more journal making. So I've done the stitch journal. You know, we had the stitch journal for Wonky Wednesday, and then there was a 2-part stitch journal for the Monday project, and then I did the commonplace book. But I've got an old children's book that I brought back from England last time, which is sitting here on my desk, and I want to make a special journal with that. I want to kind of make it more in the style of an altered book. I want to keep the essence of the book. It's literally falling apart, but it's got a lovely cover, and it's got some really great features in it, some really lovely children's projects and some great illustrations, and so so I want to do something with that, so that will be coming at one point. Yeah, some more in the journal making. I've got some art journals I've got in progress as well. I'd like to show more of that. And I've also got another knitting project up my sleeve once I've done the socks. I'm going to end that off because it's nearly run out anyway. A scrappy knitting project. A simple one. Aimed at everybody, but especially beginner knitters. So light colour here, dark, plus one light, so we need another light. So that will be all to come. And of course, as the leaves get more and more, I did the onion skin dyeing and eco printing, which actually that video, if you've seen it, was designed so that you've got the basics for any kind of natural dyeing and any kind of eco printing. Although, you know, there's obviously other things relevant to what materials you use and so on. But I definitely want to do some eco printing with you when the leaves are out a little bit more and they've got a little bit more substance in them here in the Northern Hemisphere. So very possibly we'll start with eco printing on paper, which might then tie into the journal making. So I hope that's something that you'll be interested in as well. And the other thing is I don't know why I've suddenly decided to tell you about all the things that are in my brain. But more ideas for vessels. For I've done the cloth twine baskets when I was doing the weaving last week with the paper and the cloth. I did go away and have a little play. You know, if you watched that video last Wednesday, and I was playing with that woven piece in my hands and coiling it into a cylinder. I went away and had another play with some strips of, and there's another fly, sorry, and Stella now has to have that one as well. Some strips of paper and cloth, and maybe there'll be something coming along that line at one point. But that's very much in the experimental stage. Some kind of woven vessel. And I had another idea for a woven vessel as well, using old denim, which I've had in my brain for quite a long time. So yeah, there's that. So there you go. That's what a very good friend of mine calls a brain dump. It's all out now. Oh, Stels, can you be careful, please? Sorry about that. She's after that fly and knocking things flying. So I am technically at the edge here. Do I think it looks balanced? Do I want another strip? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to lay one on. Because if I lay a skinny one on like that, doesn't matter if I go slightly over the edge of my foundation. Then I'm just following my path of my meander. Yeah, no, that's not the right side, is it? That has to go that side. You see, you were all shouting at me, weren't you, if you were looking and not busy looking at your own, which is understandable if you were. But I had it on the wrong side. So that one would go there and that one would go there. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that, and then I think that's because these are thinner strips and those are wider, so it just makes it look more balanced. Sorry about Stella and the fly. I'm just going to go about a scant 1/4 of an inch in from the edge of my strip, because then I know I'm into my foundation cloth. No, it's the fly is smart. It's staying high up, smarter than its friend or relative that was in here earlier. The trouble is she's on a mission, and you can't, you know, well, you could intervene, of course you could. She's only a little scrap, but you just pick her up. But she's focused on her task. And I feel like I'm stitching into nothing now, which is not much use at all, is it? That's it. See, I've gone a little bit outside the boundary of my block, but when it's just a one-off block, it doesn't have to fit in with any others. I don't mind. I think both the fly and Stella have left not the building but the room. Okay. Oh, she's come back. So, yeah, I was going to sew my little thin strip on the other side there. This is a bit of my drop cloth that I used on the inside of my exhibition journal. I like that mark. Oh, here's the fly back again. It's one of those really super annoying ones, you know, the ones that really dive bomb you. Yeah, I think that's just what it needed to be completely balanced, that last strip. And I think it's not square anymore, but who said it had to be? Yeah, it suddenly got warmer here in the last few days. Up until over the weekend we had the kitchen range lit again because it was very... although if you went outside and the sun came out, it was warm. It needs to get quite warm outside before it gets through to the house, because the walls are, you know, rock a yard thick or stones a yard thick. And it's got very small cottagey windows. It's quite dark, and my studio is probably the lightest room because we put the window in ourselves. And Lily's room as well is also quite light. But downstairs, very small windows. In fact, there aren't. There's one tiny little window over the kitchen sink, and then the door's half glazed, but that's all the natural light that comes in. And the sitting room's also got quite a big half glazed door, but that's it. But it does mean that in winter the heat stays in, and in summer the heat stays out. And then we've got wooden shutters on the outside as well. So, but it's just in these in-between months, you know, it doesn't get, although it's warmer outside than it is inside. Okay, there we go. So now I have to take a view on the stitching. Do you know what? I think I'm just going to do one line of each light and dark, just to follow the spiral. Stell, settle now. Good girl. People don't want to hear you tick-ticking on the floor. So let's get a needle. Start with the light. Now, have I learnt my lesson? Am I going to leave a line unstitched for sewing it to my page? Try and remember to finish here on the dark and stop before I stitch that, and then stitch it to the page, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to come up here somewhere in the middle of this middle light coloured one, and I'm just going to do running stitch. Obviously you can do whatever you like. I'm just going to do running stitch following that meander, that key shape. I think it's called a key because you've got the darks and the lights interlocked. Did I say that in the beginning? That's why it's called a key, like a key fitting a lock, I think, I assume. Yeah, that's good. That's nice. I'm liking that. Well, we didn't have any military aeroplanes so far. We had flies instead. Feels so nice in the hand, these little raw edge blocks on a foundation. And it's kind of soft and it's got substance to it at the same time. And this is, yeah, that's definitely something I want to do more of. There's so many things I want to do more of, and I used to kind of stress about it. You know, so many things I want to do. Oh no, I want to do this and that and the other. And now I just think, well, yes, I'm enjoying this. I would like to do more of this. And if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And kind of if it doesn't, then apparently I didn't want it that badly, you know. If I go and do something else instead, then apparently there's something else is what I want to do more than this. I'll just be a little bit more relaxed about it and not feel it as a pressure. That makes sense. All the projects, you know, the Monday project and this Wonky Wednesday and all the extras that I was talking about and whatever, I really hope that none of you feel those as obligations in inverted commas. You know, you don't have to do it all. That seems an obvious thing to say, but I do kind of know that feeling if you're following along with something, especially with a project like the Monday project or this Wednesday project. You might feel, you get that sort of obligation feeling about it, you know, like it's homework. Really, please don't. Please don't. I'm not going to come to your house and tell you off if you don't do your homework. I mean, the weekly slow stitch is numbered on the screen, but in my journal I haven't written them. I write the date on that, that's true. In this journal I don't, the log cabin, I don't write anything. I just put the piece in. But the numbering's there for the sake of people looking, you know, there are people that have joined late that need to know what ones they've missed and so on. What I'm saying is don't feel that, you know, you could miss out a number. Don't feel that if you miss out number 14, let's just randomly pick a number, that's wrong. I hope that nobody feels like that. And I certainly hope that you don't feel any pressure or obligation. I think I have seen one or two people say that about the projects. Oh, I need to make a biscuit new, and I need to make a rice bag, and and then I have to do that, and then, oh no, there's another project come online, and oh, that fly is really annoying. I don't want to overwhelm you, but at the same time, you know, I know there are people that are waiting for the weekly things. And the extra things, to be honest, they come to me and I just want to share them. So feel free to ignore them if they're not for you or they're too much. Okay, I'll have to stab stitch there because that's one layer of quite high weave sheet behind another. I've got through there, that's okay. I like that. It really emphasises the shape because the stitching's going over the, you know, where the two bits of cloth cross. I disregarded the cross in the cloth, I just stitched on as if it was a continuous line. I don't think this thread's going to last till the end there. Well, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just get to the end of this white side, the light side, and then I'm going to finish off my thread and go and do the dark, and then I can use that light strip to attach it to my book. How's that for a plan? Since I need to stop and start anyway. That's far enough. Back stitch. So I've got this other thread which is a Valdani. I think it's an 8 weight, it's a slightly thicker thread. There we go. I need to get myself a longer bit. I'm probably going to come unstuck now, get tangled. Oops. Keep that handy, I can use that to sew it to my book. Talk amongst yourselves while I thread my needle. There we go. Is it through? No. No, it is not. Let's try the other end. Sometimes the other end goes in better, and sometimes you turn the needle around and it goes in better. There we go. It was one thing or the other. This is very kinky, this thread. I pulled it from the middle, maybe that's why. I should have pulled it from the outside, would have been better. Sorry, I just ran it through my mouth, I'm sorry. You know, a less primitive person would have run it through wax or something. Okay, I'll start at the middle and do the same thing in the darks. Long thread, lazy girl. Wasn't so much lazy, well it was I suppose laziness, because I didn't want to have to stop halfway and put a new bit. I was trying to make sure there was enough to get me all the way around. If when I go to edit the fly is really annoying, I'll edit it out as much as possible. Yeah, it's really amazing how just one little line of stitching can really emphasise the pattern. Okay, I've done all my decorative stitching and I just think it just needs one more piece of dark there just to finish it off. So I'm just going to stitch that on with my decorative top stitching thread. Because then if you want to join more to carry on the pattern, then there you would put the next one going that way, and so on. That makes sense. So I'm just going to, can I just squeeze that on there? I think so. Just into the foundation underneath. Okay, I think that's better. I think that's that just finishes it off nicely. So now I'm going to attach it to my book along that unstitched edge. Here's my book, and I'm going to go back a page because I put last week's weave on the paper page, so this is going to go here. Put it that way around because it's just easier to stitch down this outside edge, and I've got the same pinky cream that I was using. Oh, that fly. I'm so sorry. So I just stitched that on there, and I don't want to come through there, never mind, I've done it now. I go through almost invisible base-like to get myself to the right place. So I just acted as a little tacking stitch on that corner. And yeah, I really like the look of that in the book because it fits the whole what's going on. At the same time I like the look of the bright coloured hexagon, and I like the look of the very monochromatic weave because of the contrast. But that's the joy of these stitch journals. You can just play and you see things by page rather than all together, so you have little mini pieces that you can look back on. I often look back on my, my much older stitch journals to see what stage I was at then, what I was doing, especially the ones I've written in, but also just the stitch ones, like a little record of your stitching journey. And you can also get ideas if you ever get stuck from yourself. Right, that's that. So that's Wonky Wednesday, Greek key, meandros. Hold it up so you can see. So I hope you like that, I hope you have a go. I think it's a lovely shape to make, and again it would also benefit from having some friends around it as well. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to you joining me next time for more cloth tales. Bye bye.